You know, I didn't think I was going to wear this hat until after Obama was out of office, just because it says presidential crew on it. But today we're talking about horror stories, so I figured, why not? Insert logo and dramatic opening music here. Now, this is not going to be a political video. It very easily could be, but when I say horror stories, I'm not referring to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. I'm referring to actual horror stories, that is to say, movies, books, or whatever else that are designed to scare and horrify you. The reason that I thought of this is because of something that I saw on Facebook a couple days ago. And it said that people in horror movies must live in an alternate reality where horror movies don't exist. And I understand why people would think this. I understand why it would be said, and it's a mildly amusing idea, but I don't think it's accurate. And horror films have a reputation for being kind of cheesy, and in a sense, I agree with this stereotype. Horror movies are kind of cheesy, and the characters are kind of stupid, and, they're not high-quality movies. But at the same time, I don't think that they're quite as stupid as everyone makes them out to be. And the reason for this is that I think that people forget that characters don't see themselves as characters. Now, think on this. When was the last time you were in a horror movie? And if you're an actor or someone, I don't think that you would be watching this video, but if you are an actor and you are watching this video, I don't mean when was the last time you acted in a horror movie. I mean, when was the last time that you were actually a part of some scarring event where, everyone died, or where everyone died and you were the only one left alive, or something like that happened? I doubt that something like that has happened to you. Maybe it has, but it's something that's rare. Now, when we watch horror movies, we have an outside perspective, so we know that something's going to go wrong. And so every time the character does something, we're sitting there shouting at the screen, "No, don't do that! Don't you see how stupid that is?" Well, maybe it's something stupid that they're doing, but at the same time, it doesn't matter what they do because it's a horror movie. In horror movies, no matter what the character does, something is going to go wrong. And I realized this just the other day as I was reaching under a chair to pick up a pen. Now, in a horror movie, a giant spider would drop out of nowhere and bite me on the hand and I would die. In real life, I reached under the chair and picked up my pen. Everything in a horror movie is dramatic. It's intended to scare you, so anything that a character does is going to turn out wrong. Anytime I fill up a cup of water and carry it out to the living room so I can have a drink, in a horror movie, you would trip and fall, or maybe not in a horror movie, but in a comedy film or whatever it is. The point is, in stories, everything happens for a reason. So if a character is shown doing something, it's because it's important. It's because something is going to happen. In real life, we don't have just the important, momentous sections of our lives highlighted. So if you fill up a cup of water, you're just filling up a cup of water. In a horror movie, you fill up a cup of water and it turns out that the entire water supply for the town is poisoned and you're all gonna die, But it's not something that happens in real life. And these characters have never had anything like this happen to them before. They're supposed to be characters from real life. And I think the same thing applies to any type of story, whether fantasy or science fiction or whatever. In a story, if someone says, "Oh, but that's just an old legend," it is not just an old legend. In real life, if somebody says, "Oh, that's just an old legend," chances are it's just an old legend. When we are watching movies or reading books or whatever it is very easy for us to look at it from our perspective because we have an outside perspective. So we can say, "Oh, well, I know that this character isn't actually a bad guy. He's a good guy because I saw this scene that the main character didn't know about." Or I know that this character isn't going to die yet because I caught a glimpse of something in a later chapter, or because the story is too early on, and we know that this guy, if he's going to die, is going to die at the very end because he's the main character. It's easy for us to look at things and say, well, then why is the character so worried? Or why is the character doing this stupid thing? Or whatever it is. And we forget that the character doesn't realize he's a character. It would be like if a UFO landed right in front of me right now. How in the world would I react? Because I don't even believe in aliens. So, if I were a part of a science fiction story, the arrival of aliens would kind of freak me out just a little bit, you know? And characters are going to react the same way because characters typically don't believe in the Loch Ness Monster or in aliens or in whatever else it is. They're just normal. Okay, I do believe that the Loch Ness Monster probably has existed at some point. I don't know if it still exists. It might be extinct. I believe that the Loch Ness Monster was probably a dinosaur of some type. Don't know if it's still around, but that's beside the point. The point is that characters tend to believe or disbelieve the same things that we believe or disbelieve as ordinary human beings. And so, for us, reaching under a chair or going outside at night, if you hear something rummaging around and asking who's there, you're probably just going to scare away a cat. There are all these things that we think of as normal, but when we see it in a movie, we fail to take into account that the character probably just sees it as normal too. They probably don't see it as some big thing that's going to lead to a horror movie. So that's kind of a weird topic for today, but it's something to think about, and I think that it's also interesting to think about how, in real life, people are very willing to say, well, you can't judge this because you haven't tried it or you haven't experienced it or whatever. Sometimes that's the case, where being on the inside of something, you know better than anyone else what it's like. But there are other situations where being on the outside gives you a different perspective, kind of like how being on the outside, you know what the character should be doing because you are not the character. You can't necessarily know what the character is feeling, but you know the situation in a different way and in potentially a better way than the character does. So there are inside and outside perspectives, and I think that we forget about that in real life and when we're reading stories. So those are my thoughts. Quick note, remember my short-term goal for this channel was to have 10 subscribers, and last I checked, I believe we were either 8 or 9, so we're only a few more away from our short-term goal. So remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and fare thee well.